Letting go is hard because you're giving someone up that has become a part of you, and it's part of what makes you who you are today. It can be difficult to let go of that part from your past.
Have you ever wanted something so deeply it felt like a fire in your chest? A dream, a person, a breakthrough, something you could almost taste. Maybe you tried everything: vision boards, affirmations, scripting. You followed every step that promised to attract it. But still, nothing. What if I told you that the very act of wanting might be the thing keeping it away? Don't chase, attract. You're probably wondering, what more do I have to do? That statement alone might make your mind rebel. Everything you've been taught says the opposite. Hustle harder, want it more, focus on it until the universe has no choice. But here's the truth you've probably felt in your bones, even if you couldn't name it. The more you want, the more you chase. The more you chase, the more you push it away. And the wildest part? When you finally stop wanting, really, truly let it go, what you were aching for shows up. Not because you earned it, not because you finally did the manifestation ritual correctly, but because you stepped out of the way. This is the law of reversal, a spiritual principle so powerful and so upside down, it flips everything you thought you knew on its head. Let's begin at the root of desire. Desire by itself isn't the villain. It's natural. We're wired to move toward pleasure and away from pain. The body wants to be fed. The heart wants to be loved. The spirit wants to be seen. But what makes desire heavy, what turns it into suffering, is the gripping, that clench, that feeling of, if I don't get this, I'm not okay. That's the moment desire turns into craving, and craving is a prison with invisible bars. Suffering arises from craving. In Buddhism, this is called tanha, or thirst. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from life itself, but from this deep inner thirst for things to be different from how they are. When we want to be elsewhere, someone else, somewhere else, we split ourselves, we deny the present moment, and we suffer. This might seem like philosophy, but if you slow down and really look, you'll feel how true it is. Think about something you've deeply wanted lately, maybe a relationship, more money, a healing. Now notice the emotion that rises when you focus on not having it. Is it peace, or is it tightness, fear, pressure? That emotional tension is a signal. It's the universe gently showing you that you're holding too tight. Now here's the twist. The moment you stop chasing, it comes closer. The moment you stop gripping, it breathes. This is what the Tao Te Ching whispers about when it says, by letting it go, it all gets done. The world is won by those who let it go. But when you try and try, the world is beyond winning. There's a strange magic in surrender, but most people confuse surrender with giving up. That's not what we're doing here. Giving up comes from hopelessness. Surrender comes from wisdom. Surrender is trusting that the river knows where it's going, even when you don't. That your desires are not wrong, but they're not supposed to consume you either. Surrender is not laziness, it's radical trust in the deeper current beneath appearances. And this is where the law of reversal begins to show itself. Imagine a hungry animal running after a butterfly. The faster it runs, the more the butterfly flutters away. But the moment it lays down in stillness, the butterfly might come to rest gently on its fur. The hunger pushed it away. The stillness invited it in. When you operate from lack, I need this or I won't be okay, you emit fear, not faith. The universe responds to that signal, not your words. You can say all the affirmations you want, but if the energy beneath them is desperation, the message isn't I'm ready, it's I'm afraid. Think of the people you've admired most, whether spiritual masters, artists, or leaders. Did they seem frantic? Did they beg the world to give them something? Or did they become what they were seeking? Did they walk like the thing they desired was already theirs? There's a quiet power in that. So how do you live without wanting? You don't stop having preferences or dreams. You simply stop clinging to them. You hold them lightly, like a feather in your palm, not a stone in your fist. You allow them to exist, but you don't measure your wholeness by whether or not they arrive. Here's the paradox. The more whole you feel without it, the faster it comes. And when it does, you're not attached, you're not addicted, you're free. You enjoy it, and you let it go if it leaves. This is not easy. It goes against your conditioning. You've been taught to fight for everything, but in the spiritual path, many things work in reverse. Stillness moves mountains. Silence reveals truth. Letting go brings more. That's why this is called the law of reversal. Many spiritual traditions understood this in their own way. Jesus said, "Whoever loses his life shall find it." The Sufis spoke of annihilation of the self, fana, not as death, but as union. The Gita urges Arjuna to act without attachment to outcomes. Even modern psychology confirms it. The more we obsess over happiness, the more it escapes us. This law is ancient, but always alive. You can test it now. Think of something you've been wanting deeply. Hold it in your mind. Then whisper inwardly, "Even if I never get this, I am still whole. I am still enough." Feel the energy shift, the grip loosen, the breath return. That's your sign. This is the beginning. But even still, have you ever wondered why, even when you try to let go, you still feel stuck? The ego's game, how it keeps you chasing and missing what's already yours. Here's the hidden layer. The ego is clever. It doesn't want to be seen. It disguises itself in spiritual language, in self-help quotes, even in meditation practices. It makes you believe you've let go, while quietly tightening its grip. And if you don't see this clearly, the law of reversal can't work. Not because the universe isn't listening, but because you're unknowingly sending two signals at once. I trust on the surface, and I need this now or I'll fall apart underneath. This confusion blocks the flow. It's like stepping on the gas and the brakes at the same time. You don't go anywhere, and eventually you burn out. Let's go deeper. The ego at its core is not evil. It's not trying to ruin your life. It was created as a survival tool, a way to protect you, define you, and help you move through a world full of sharp corners. But somewhere along the line, the ego forgot it was just a tool. It started believing it was you. That's where the trouble begins. The ego is built from thoughts like, I need to be seen. I need to be successful. I need to be chosen. I need to be special. These thoughts are not bad in themselves, but when you attach your entire sense of being to them, you fall into a trap. You begin to live from lack, because the ego is never satisfied. It always wants more. The moment you get what you wanted, it moves the goalpost. A relationship? Now you need it to be perfect. Money? Now you need double. Recognition? Now you need everyone to agree. This endless chase isn't life, it's prison. You might be thinking, but if I stop chasing, won't I become lazy or fall behind? That's exactly the lie the ego whispers to keep itself alive. But the truth is, you function better when you're not gripping. You create better when you're not forcing. You love deeper when you're not afraid of losing. Look at nature. A flower doesn't bloom because it's trying. It blooms because the conditions are right. Your soul is the same. When you remove fear, tightness, and over-control, life expresses itself through you. Not because you make it happen, but because you allow it. There's an old parable about a man searching for peace. He walks through forests, across deserts, up mountains, asking every wise person how to find peace. Years go by, and still he wanders. One day, tired and broken, he sits down beside a river. He gives up the search. And suddenly, he notices the stillness. The peace he was chasing had been there all along. He was just too noisy inside to hear it. That's how the ego works. It makes you chase things that are already within you. It convinces you that your happiness is always one step ahead. If only you could fix this, change that, earn this, become that. But no matter how fast you run, the finish line keeps moving. This is why the law of reversal is hard to master, because you can say you've let go, you can even believe you've surrendered, but if the ego is still whispering in the background, trying to use surrender as another strategy to get what it wants, then you're still chasing. Real surrender is quiet. It's not a trick, it's a knowing. So how do you spot the ego in disguise? You can feel it. The ego always brings tension. It speaks in urgency. It's afraid of silence. It needs constant proof that you're enough. It can even show up in spiritual language. If I just raise my vibration, if I meditate harder, if I heal this wound faster, all of these can be helpful, but when they're fueled by lack, they become another form of running. The law of reversal asks you to stop running entirely. It invites you to stand still and see that what you were looking for was always around you, always within you, not because you earned it, but because it was never not there. You just couldn't see it from the inside of the chase. Some spiritual teachings describe this moment as dying before you die. It sounds dramatic, but what it really means is this. You stop identifying with the part of you that's always striving. You let that version dissolve, and what's left is a presence, a deep, open silence that doesn't need anything, because it already is everything. Allow yourself to be found. From that space, the law of reversal becomes natural. You don't have to make anything happen. Desires are still there, but they're softer. They come and go like waves, and you don't cling to any of them. And strangely, in that state, life begins to flow toward you. Not because you pushed harder, but because you finally became still enough to receive. Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you." The kingdom isn't far away. It's the place within you where the ego has no grip, where you remember that your being is enough, that you are whole. When you live from this place, what you once chased now finds you. The right people, the right paths, the right timing. They unfold, not because you demanded them, but because you aligned with their natural rhythm. You became like water. The Tao Te Ching says, "The soft overcomes the hard. The still overcomes the restless." The ego will always fight to stay restless, but the soul knows that true power is gentle, still, unshaken. So the next time the ego says, "Go get it or you'll lose it," pause, breathe, ask, "What if I already have it? What if I already am it?" And notice the space that opens inside you. That space is where the law of reversal works best. Not in force, not in fear, but in stillness, in enoughness, in the quiet decision to stop running and let what's meant for you come home. When it starts working, receiving without fear, staying in the flow. Next, you'll discover a strange moment that comes after surrender. It's quiet, almost still. You're not sure anything's happening at all, but it is. Deep beneath the surface, the universe begins to shift. Things start lining up in ways that don't make sense to the mind. A message arrives at just the right time. A job offer appears without effort. Someone says the exact words you needed to hear. You think of a person, and they call you. This is when the law of reversal begins to move. And for many, this is where the real challenge begins, not in letting go, but in staying open. Why? because we're not used to receiving, not truly. Most of us have been trained to believe we need to earn everything. We must suffer for it, chase it, prove we're worthy of it. So when life starts giving freely, without the usual strain, the mind gets suspicious. Wait, it says. Why is this happening now? What's the catch? And just like that, the old patterns try to pull you back. It's like finally being let into a beautiful garden after years of banging on the door. But instead of enjoying the flowers, you start looking around nervously, waiting for someone to kick you out. Here's the truth you must hold close. You belong in that garden. You always did. The law of reversal works because it honors your true nature. It isn't a trick or a test. It's a return to the way things were always meant to flow, before the ego started rewriting the rules. But in this new space, you'll need to learn a new rhythm, a rhythm of trust, of allowing, of receiving, not just gifts or blessings, but yourself. Receiving, in its highest form, is not passive. It's deeply engaged. It asks you to hold the door open when goodness comes knocking. It asks you to stop deflecting compliments, to stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, to stop walking away from what feels right just because it came too easy. The old you may have felt safer in the chase, but the true you, the one who lives in alignment with the law of reversal, knows that flow is not laziness. It's grace, and grace doesn't need to be earned. It just needs to be welcomed. There's a Zen teaching that says, sit quietly, doing nothing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself. At first glance, it sounds like an excuse to do nothing, but it's deeper than that. It's about trust. It's about aligning yourself with the natural unfolding of life. You don't need to make blessings bloom. You just need to be still enough to notice when they do. But what if, in that stillness, fear creeps back in? What if the old patterns return, whispering lies of unworthiness? Then you pause, and you remember, you are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not the old story that says you must fight for love, beg for success, or shrink for peace. You are the space beneath that story. And in that space, all things are possible. Imagine your life as a river again. In the past, you may have tried to swim upstream, believing the harder you paddled, the faster you'd arrive. But now, you've turned around. You're floating. The current is strong, but it carries you. You don't need to know what's around the bend. You just need to stay soft enough not to resist. And here's something beautiful. The more you practice this way of being, the more your nervous system relaxes. The body, once tight and restless, begins to trust. Your breath deepens, your thoughts become clearer, even your relationships change, because you're no longer trying to get anything from anyone. You're just being, and that's magnetic. People will start to notice. They won't be able to explain it. You feel different, they might say. Something about you is calm, centered. That's the power of living reversed. There's a moment in every spiritual journey when you have to choose the old game or the new truth. The game says, keep chasing, keep proving, keep pleasing. The truth says, you are already enough. Let life come to you. Choosing the truth again and again, that's your real practice now. Not forcing, not grasping, just remembering and receiving. Think of the story of the prodigal son. He left home in search of something greater, only to return empty and ashamed. But instead of punishment, his father welcomed him with open arms. The point of that parable isn't about sin or guilt. It's about coming home. It's about realizing that what you were looking for, belonging, abundance, love, was never far. It was only waiting for your return. That is the essence of the law of reversal. A return to the truth that was always yours. How to hold what you've received without clinging, without fear. It's strange, isn't it? After all the wanting, all the chasing, the thing you desired most finally arrives. Maybe it's peace, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's a partner, a purpose, a place to call your own. You feel it, you know it, and for a moment, everything is still. But then something happens. A quiet panic begins to rise. What if I lose this? The mind whispers. What if it disappears as suddenly as it came? And just like that, the fear returns, not of not having, but of having and losing. This is one of the great traps. The ego doesn't just chase, it clings. It says, "This is mine now. I must hold on tight." But the more you tighten your grip, the more what you love begins to slip through your fingers. Not because life is cruel, but because you're no longer flowing. You're gripping, controlling, struggling again. There's an old Taoist story about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors said, "Such bad luck." The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with 3 wild horses. "Such good luck," the neighbors said. "Maybe," the farmer answered again. Then the farmer's son broke his leg trying to ride one of the wild horses. "Terrible luck," they cried. "Maybe," the farmer said. Later, soldiers came to the village, drafting every young man, but they left the farmer's injured son behind. The point of the story isn't about luck. It's about the truth that life moves. It shifts, it unfolds, it gives and takes, not as punishment or reward, but as part of its nature. The more we try to name every moment as good or bad, mine or not mine, the more we suffer. So how do you hold what you've received without falling back into fear? You begin by remembering you are not the source of your blessings. You are the receiver, the vessel, the sky, not the weather. And skies do not cling to clouds. They simply let them pass. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you love without trying to possess. You enjoy without trying to freeze time. You let the joy move through you, knowing that more will come, not because you chase it, but because you've become a match for it. Many spiritual traditions speak of this. In Buddhism, it's the idea of non-attachment, not detachment, not coldness or distance, but freedom, the ability to love fully, knowing nothing is permanent and yet everything is meaningful. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna to act, but without being tied to the results. Let go of the fruits of your actions, he says. In other words, do what's right, stay open, live fully, and release the grip on outcome. This is where true peace is found, because when you're no longer trying to hold on, you become free to hold space. Holding space means you allow the people you love to grow. You let your purpose shift if it needs to. You stay present with your abundance, your creativity, your rest, without feeling like you have to lock it down to make it last. When you do this, life starts to feel light again. Not shallow, light, like a breeze that moves through you, like a song you don't need to capture to enjoy. You laugh more, you breathe easier, you stop waiting for the next disaster. And the most beautiful part, you start to receive even more. Because now you're living in harmony with the law of reversal. You're not chasing, you're not grasping, you're not doubting or judging the process. You're allowing. And life rushes in to meet you. You've become a magnet, not because of tricks or techniques, but because you're finally relaxed enough to be yourself. And who you really are is someone who can handle joy, who can carry blessings, who doesn't push away good things out of guilt or fear. That's something we don't talk about enough. How many of us feel guilty for receiving? Maybe it's how we were raised. Maybe we were told that ease meant laziness, that joy was selfish, that love had to be earned. But that's not truth. That's conditioning. Here's the deeper truth. When you receive fully, you become someone who gives fully. When your cup overflows, it spills into every life you touch. You don't have to force generosity. It becomes who you are. And yes, there will be moments when you feel yourself slipping, when the old urge to chase returns. That's okay. That's natural. The ego doesn't vanish overnight. But you don't have to listen to it anymore. You just watch, you breathe, you smile, and you return. Return to trust. Return to presence. Return to the knowing that you don't need to hold on to keep something alive. What's meant for you will flow to you, and it will stay if you stop trying to trap it. You are not meant to live in fear of loss. You are meant to live in awe of life, all of it, the giving, the taking, the returning, the changing, the quiet miracles that happen when you finally let yourself receive. And when you receive without guilt, you teach the world a new kind of courage. The courage to feel joy, the courage to accept love, the courage to trust in unseen forces that have been waiting for you to open your hands. This is the practice now, not chasing, not proving, but allowing and holding gently. When the world tries to pull you back, you've done something radical. You've stopped chasing, you've let go, you've opened your hands, and something beautiful started pouring in. A kind of peace you didn't know was possible. A softness, a power that doesn't shout, but hums in your chest like a low drumbeat. You've felt the truth of the law of reversal in your bones. And then, as if on cue, the world around you starts to shift, but not always in the way you hoped. Friends grow distant, family members give you odd looks. Some people begin to test your peace, others accuse you of changing, of being too calm, too different, too selfish even. This is not a mistake, this is a test, and it's also a gift. Because whenever you rise into a new way of being, the old world doesn't know what to do with you at first. Not because it's cruel, but because it's familiar. It's used to the older version of you, the one who over-explained, over-apologized, over-performed, the one who burned out in service of being liked, the one who worked hard for crumbs, because crumbs were all that felt safe. But you're not that version anymore. When you begin to live by the law of reversal, you become strange to those who are still trapped in the loop of striving. You become someone who doesn't force things, who doesn't panic when nothing is happening, who doesn't perform to be chosen. This can be unsettling to people who still live inside the illusion that says, if I don't push harder, I'll lose everything. If I'm not needed, I won't be loved. If I'm not useful, I don't deserve peace. You become a mirror, not one that judges, but one that reflects a quieter truth, one that whispers, there's another way. And not everyone wants to hear that. In many stories across the world, from ancient myths to modern parables, there's always a moment when the hero returns home after their awakening, and home no longer feels like home. Think of the Buddha, who left the palace and returned with the light of awareness in his eyes. Think of Jesus in the desert, who came back and was met with skepticism and fear. Think of the villagers in countless folk tales who scoff at the wise fool until his way suddenly brings miracles. The message is clear. When you shift, not everyone will clap. But that doesn't mean you've lost your way. In fact, it means you've found it. You have to be gentle with yourself in these moments. The old world will tug at your sleeve, asking you to come back into its noise, to worry more, to please more, to hustle, apologize, explain, defend. But you no longer belong to that world. You don't need to argue or fight with it. You simply need to keep walking. And here's the deeper truth. The people who are meant to walk with you in this new way of living, they'll feel your shift and rise to meet it. Some may fall away, others may come closer than ever. New connections, true connections, will start forming, not around effort or survival, but around presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need fixing or impressing. The kind that says, I see you, just as you are, and it's enough. Of course, it's tempting to slip back, especially when emotions run high. You might find yourself trying to explain your peace to people who haven't tasted it. Trying to prove your softness isn't laziness, that your ease isn't ignorance. But you don't need to defend your transformation. You don't need to translate your freedom into a language of struggle just so others feel comfortable. Some will only understand later. Others may never understand, and that's okay. Your job now is not to convince anyone. Your job is to stay true. This is where the real spiritual practice deepens, not in the silence of meditation, but in the noise of life. Not in the high moments of insight, but in the slow moments when you're tempted to play small again, when you're asked to betray your peace just to feel accepted. But peace is not a costume you put on when it's convenient. It's not a performance. It's your new baseline, your home frequency. So when guilt creeps in, let it rise, watch it, let it pass. When fear taps your shoulder, breathe deeper, not faster. You don't need to be cold to protect your peace. You just need to be clear. Clear on who you are now, clear on what you no longer chase, clear on the fact that you can be soft and strong at the same time. One of the greatest lies the ego tells us is this, that being loved means being needed, needed for what you give, do, or fix. But the soul knows a deeper truth. Love isn't earned by effort. Love is. You don't have to shrink to be accepted. You don't have to break your own flow to carry others. If someone cannot meet you in your stillness, it is not your job to stir the waters for them. This isn't selfishness, it's trust. You're learning now to trust the flow more than the crowd, to trust the feeling of alignment, even if it looks unfamiliar. You're learning that not every departure is a loss, that some spaces need to clear so better ones can bloom. This is how the law of reversal begins to settle in, like roots beneath the surface. You've gone from chasing to receiving, from receiving to holding, and now you're learning to protect, not by building walls, but by planting boundaries that let the right things grow. You're not here to live in resistance anymore. You're here to rest in response, to let life speak, and to listen without panic, to let your soul move first and let the world catch up later. The power in the shadows, how reversal reveals your true light. After all, the most powerful forces in nature don't shout, they don't rush or panic. Gravity doesn't ask for permission to hold you. The moon doesn't demand applause to move the ocean. Your breath, unnoticed, keeps you alive without asking for credit. And your soul, that quiet, steady thing beneath all your noise, knows how to pull everything in without lifting a finger. That's the kind of power the law of reversal gives you. And yet, the moment you touch it, truly feel it, your ego will whisper, "This can't be enough." It will try to convince you that real power must look like more noise, more action, more validation. But that's not true power. That's the illusion of it. And that illusion keeps you running in circles. The law of reversal asks something softer of you. It invites you to stop striving, stop grabbing, stop needing the world to see you before you've seen yourself. And this may be the most radical shift of all, because we live in a world that rewards performance, not presence. That praises the show, not the silence. But real magic doesn't beg to be seen. It just is. This truth is hidden all throughout tarot, especially when we look at the cards in reverse. Most people fear reversed cards. They see them as bad omens, warnings, losses. But in truth, reversals in tarot hold some of the deepest wisdom, because just like the law of reversal, they ask you to see beyond the surface. They ask you to pause, to look inward, to question what you've been told power looks like, and instead feel what real power feels like. Take the High Priestess reversed, for example. Upright, she is already the card of mystery, inner knowing, and the divine feminine. But when reversed, she becomes even more secretive. She pulls you inward, into the deepest part of yourself. She tells you the answers won't come from anyone else, that no book, no teacher, no lover can give you what silence can. She asks, are you brave enough to trust your own knowing, even when it makes no noise? The hermit reversed is another. Upright he retreats to find wisdom. Reversed, his solitude deepens. He may be misunderstood by others, or even fear his own withdrawal. But that reversal teaches a profound truth. Sometimes, when the world sees you as lost, it's because you finally found yourself. And that inner light you carry, it was never meant for the spotlight. It was meant to guide you home. And then there's strength reversed. Not the roaring lion or the proud display of power. Instead, she is gentle persistence. She is softness that doesn't bend. In reversal, strength reminds us that power doesn't always look strong. It doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it looks like surrender, like letting go of the need to control and realizing you are still whole, still held, still worthy. These reversals are not failures. They are revealings. In Taoist philosophy, there's an old teaching that says, to yield is to be preserved whole, to bend is to be straight. The Tao Te Ching is filled with these strange, inverted truths, and yet they make perfect sense when you feel them in your life, when you stop fighting and suddenly everything flows, when you stop chasing and the thing you longed for comes quietly to your door. The law of reversal works in the same way, but here's what no one tells you. The moment you begin to live this way, your external life might not change instantly. The world may not catch up to your vibration right away. You may even feel invisible for a time, less successful, less productive, less important. But this is the cocoon moment, the stillness before the shift. And it's in this space that you become magnetic in a way that cannot be faked. This is where the reversal happens, not just in your mind, but in your energy. You become the one who draws, not chases, who listens, not forces, who holds, not clutches. And from that stillness, everything begins to change. Receiving becomes your practice now, not as a passive act, but as a sacred one. To receive without guilt or fear means you trust that you are worthy of goodness without needing to earn it. That you don't have to explain why you deserve peace. You just do. And the more you receive with open hands, the more the universe pours in, not just things, but people, insights, beauty, direction. You don't just get what you want. You start getting what your soul longed for, but didn't know how to name. And slowly, the reversal becomes your rhythm. The things you once begged for now come looking for you. The doors you once pushed now open on their own. The love you once feared to ask for now feels natural to accept. Not because you manipulated anything, not because you outperformed anyone, but because you unclenched, you stepped back, you trusted your frequency. And that's when your life began to sing back to you. In old mystery schools, it was said that the most powerful teachings were always given in paradoxes, that the real wisdom lived in the opposite of what the world taught. This is what the law of reversal taps into. It's not about doing more, it's about becoming less entangled. It's not about convincing the world, it's about remembering who you were before the world told you what to want. And when you live from that place, you glow differently, not loudly, not desperately, just naturally, like a candle that lights a room simply by existing. The secret that was hidden in plain sight. This is where many people get confused. They think they have to fake it, act rich, act confident, act like they're already in love. But this isn't about pretending, it's about aligning. It's about dropping into that deeper layer of reality where what you desire is already humming quietly underneath your doubt. The Bon Sages didn't act perfect. They simply stopped searching. That's when the door opens. And from that place, you can ask for things, but the asking comes from play, not panic. You can create things, but the creating comes from joy, not fear. You become a vessel for life to pour through, not a container trying to capture it. One obscure teaching says, "The butterfly doesn't dream of becoming a butterfly. The caterpillar dissolves." What does that mean for us? That in order to receive the life you want, you may have to let go of the version of you that wanted it so badly. The version that tried to control, to impress, to earn. That version was never meant to carry the dream. It was meant to dissolve so that something lighter could rise in its place. And when that rising happens, you no longer feel the old pull, the old habits that told you to work harder, do more, chase, perform. They lose their power. You're in the flow now, and it's not a moment. It's a rhythm, a way of being, a quiet knowing that says, I no longer chase, I attract, I no longer need, I allow. But be gentle with yourself. Even in this awakened space, you may still forget. The world is loud, and it will try to convince you that you need to run again, that you're falling behind, that you're not enough. But remember this, the law of reversal doesn't punish forgetting, it invites remembering, again and again. There's an African proverb that says, "When there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot harm you." This is the inner shift the law of reversal creates. Your fear of not having becomes a peace with what is, and from that peace, new paths open, not because you forced them to, but because you were finally ready to receive. So if you've read this far, it's because something in you already knows this truth. You've tasted it in quiet moments, you've felt it in deep stillness, and now it's time to live it, to drop the chase, to rest in enoughness, to trust that the real you, beneath the layers and striving and wanting, has always been the magnet you were looking for. This is your reversal, and your life is about to respond. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.